Hey everyone, welcome to the Fortress of Solitude podcast. I'm your host, Sergio Pereira, and today I have a very special guest joining me. I actually have Ben Affleck.
I'm Batman.
Okay, as you can tell, that was terrible, and that was definitely not Ben Affleck.
Sorry, it's winter at the moment. I haven't quite warmed up my voice for the cowl.
No, like one of these days, like we probably are going to get like a complaint because I'm announcing all these people. They're like, "You lying to me? That wasn't Ben Affleck. I thought it was him because I like just missed it."
I'm into it. I feel like that's the thing. I'll just try and get a bit better at improv. Last time I was Australian Zack Snyder.
This time you got that one from.
Scratchy throat Ben Affleck. You know, it's about creativity. What I can bring to the role.
Exactly. I still don't understand where the Australian Zack Snyder came from. I was like, of all the things.
It doesn't matter. He was here. He came from down under. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Lois, so once again, really cool to have you here. And today, I mean, it's actually a bit of a sad topic we're going to be discussing because both you and I are huge fans of the show, like Kim's Convenience, man. And you know what, like I've been bouncing around with this idea a little bit. I mean, I wrote a piece for Fortress as well about its cancellation. I thought it was like a really like an emotional but funny and heartfelt series. Like I thought that it was done really, really well, the series. And like all of a sudden it's like, boom, it's gone. And look, I know, for example, when something is on Netflix and it's a Netflix exclusive, like anything's possible. I mean, you know, if you Netflix like decides, well, we don't like the way that, the theme song sounds, you're gone, dude. That's pretty much the way it's been. And whilst Kim's Convenience, obviously in South Africa, it's been airing on Netflix, it actually airs on a different channel overseas, and it's actually pretty popular. That's a weird thing which I don't understand. It's found like such a good audience as well internationally on Netflix, and it was doing really well. And suddenly, boom, they pulled the rug out from it, and they basically announced, okay, well, the showrunner's leaving, and we've decided, okay, that's it. It's gone. And the worst part is that there's so much that's unresolved on the show. Like season 5 ended on a note, and you can see the way it ended. It was ended in a way that kind of indicated there were more seasons to come. And
so it was kind of like an unplanned
cancellation,
unforeseen cancellation, which really sucks. Because I mean, all of these storylines, which we might get into just now, it's like they've been building it since season 1. Like those overarching relationships. Yeah, and I'm kind of sad to hear because I mean I haven't finished season 5 yet. I'm still on season 4, but it's sad to hear that it doesn't quite get the payoff that it deserves.
Yeah, man, it's tragic. And the weirdest thing is, then they announced that they're going to push forward with a spinoff for Shannon, the character, and I kind of do think that's a little bit of slap in the face of like the rest of these characters, because I mean, let's be honest here, it is a very diverse cast that's being portrayed on TV and for Kim's Convenience, and this is one of the appeals of the show as well, because and I suddenly it's like, okay, cool, well, we're just going to go with a character like Shannon. Was a great character, don't get me wrong, but do you really care about a Shannon spinoff? What about Chung? What about the rest of them? Like those people matter. Like that's the most important. They're the characters that matter. They're the characters that made the show the heart and soul of it, and it's just very bizarre. And I mean, I know that now the actors have come out a lot about the show, and they basically said that they tried to save it. They've even offered to kind of step in and offered advice where they can do things, and they just decided to pull the plug on it. And
wow,
it's just such a really bizarre situation because it's such a popular show, which I just don't understand. Like why it's being done? Like why showrunner's gone? Like they've done this before where showrunners leave. I mean, we look at like Marvel shows. I mean, they go through showrunners like underpants, because they just get bored and they're like, oh, I'm gone. Like, oh, I don't like this anymore, or creative differences, whatever. You get another showrunner. That's how it works. And generally, like that person who is the creator of the show still gets paid anyways. You're still going to get your money at the end of the day, even if you're not like the showrunner every day. So it's such a bizarre thing to actually see what's going on. And I mean, there obviously are different theories about it, and I think some of the actors, like they feel very hard done by, and I think they got every right to be, because it was a really, really good show. And I think that its ratings are very good, but I think it's one of those shows where I think even more people deserve to know about it.
Yeah. No, I also think, personally, I came to the show late. On your recommendation, I'd always seen it sort of pop up on Netflix, but not quite given it the go. And I'm glad I did, because I think it's very much like one of those easygoing comedies where, along the lines of, how people love Friends and how they love How I Met Your Mother and how they love all these shows, because it's almost like they make their little family there, or they get so familiar with the characters that it's like you're just like sitting and chilling with something comfortable, like friends, family, and just watching them go about, whatever's the next thing, and it's easy watching, and it's heartfelt and it's funny, and I just feel like it's one of those shows that kind of it's got a high merit, it's got a high quality as well of like humor.
Yeah.
The writing was pretty good for the most part. So yeah, it is sad to see.
No, absolutely. And I think the most important thing about it is it also captured sort of like the immigrant experience. I come obviously from a family like that also experienced a certain thing, when coming to South Africa, they came from overseas and immigrants in a country, and, just the little quirks and stuff that we have as a family, like there's certain things I can relate to, in that show, that you see certain things and just the way you address certain things. And it was just done in a really clever way, especially in the earlier seasons. I think it was done in a heartfelt and genuine way, and it actually elevated characters and elevated different cultures, and it kind of gave us a different appreciation instead of like whereas a lot of sitcoms would be like, oh, the immigrants, we're going to make jokes at their expense, or like oh, they're going to have a convenience store and we're going to make them just like stereotypical tropes. It wasn't like that in Kim's Convenience, and I thought that was one of the hearts of the show. And the thing is, especially like as you say, the family dynamics, like where you can see and you can relate to certain things, like with Chung and Appa, where they got in, where they all that it takes is just a conversation between the two of them. It's like, guys, just sit down and stop being stubborn, both of you. And speak to each other. You both love each other and your hearts are in the right place, but you just are stubborn. That's
the irony is like their conflict is basically just because they're so similar.
Exactly.
They're so hard-headed.
And that's the thing. It's such a heartfelt show because you can relate to it. And like, the certain themes and the way they approach certain things, I just felt that it was a really intelligent sitcom as well. And the cast was amazing in terms of like the acting. A lot of them, before the show, I mean, they popped up in some other series, here and there, but this show kind of elevated them and, put them on the next level. I mean, obviously, as we see, like a lot of them have moved on to other stuff from the likes of, what is The Mandalorian and obviously new Marvel movies. We've seen that, and it's great. It's obviously elevated them, but I just felt, and I feel right now that the story is still, it needs to be told. It deserves to be finished. It's a sitcom that actually deserves more runs. I mean, for God's sake, man. I mean, how many seasons of The Big Bang Theory did we get?
Oh, dude, that I didn't want to mention it, but that's like, when I was speaking just now, that's the show I was thinking of, where it's like you could have maybe had 4 seasons less of that and just given it, to a few shows that deserve it.
But this is what I don't understand, like, especially with sitcoms in general. Like, I always find that sitcoms get quite a long run because they're cheaper to make in general.
Yeah.
Okay, unless, of course, you're the likes of Friends or, what's the other one, like Seinfeld, where people are earning like really astronomical
crazy
salaries,
amounts of money.
But it's obviously because they're in prime time. But in general, like, sitcoms always get given a lot of breathing room. But, like, it's not unheard of for sitcoms to have 8 or 9 seasons. Like we said, in Big Bang Theory, I don't even know how many seasons they have because honestly, I don't care.
Maybe 12. I don't know.
Friends as well, the worst sitcom on the planet, has so many seasons as well. I hate Friends.
Sitcom on the planet.
I hate Friends. Like, honestly, I hate it. It's the worst sitcom ever. It's like, I don't understand. It's a bunch of people sitting on a couch and complaining about their lives, but yet they're sitting on a couch drinking coffee all day. Of course, why aren't you going to work? You say
that's true.
Your life
sucks. What? Kim's Convenience, they're always at work.
Exactly. Those guys are always working. They're hustling. At Friends, they're sitting in the coffee shop complaining about love. Oh, I love Joey. Oh, no, I don't love Joey. I love Chandler. Who cares? Who cares? Like, Friends should stay in the 90s where it belongs. Just like bomber jackets. It's exactly the same thing. But again, I digress. I'm going on a rant about Friends, and this is going to be like another podcast. But like the thing is, I don't get it. It's like a lot of sitcoms get so many seasons. A lot of them are like super average. I mean, look at 2.5 Men as an example. We all know Charlie Sheen was a star there.
Yeah.
But obviously, he was winning at life, whatever that means. And he ended up like obviously going off of the rails slightly and getting off the show. They still carried on with Ashton Kutcher, even though that show was terrible for like several seasons afterwards. And they ended on their own terms because they eventually said, okay, cool, the show is going to end with I think it was a 12th season, if I'm not mistaken. All right, great. They even wrote the story, even though it was a terrible ending, they still wrote it to finish it off. Here we go with Kim's Convenience. It's like, okay, guys, that's a wrap. Oh, by the way, we won't see you back next year. So cheers, peace out. I mean, come on.
That's rough. And you know what? Like, apparently Simu Liu was like so looking forward to his sixth season. Like, he really enjoyed like working on the show. Like, there was some interview that I read with him, and he mentioned that, like, despite the fact that apparently they don't get paid that well for the show, I don't know why. You know, he said it had like a lot of impact on people, and like from what he had heard and all the reception it got. So I think from an artist point of view, he was excited to push the character further. And yeah, it's unfortunate that, you know, that they can't. Do you know like the primary reason why? Or was it just like amongst the COVID and?
I don't know exactly what the reasoning is, because I mean it's changed a bit. Like the messaging seems to be a little bit all over the place. Like they said, oh no, the showrunner was leaving, but again, you can replace a showrunner. It's not that difficult to do. I mean, there are plenty of showrunners that need jobs in Hollywood, and they would be willing to jump on. And like I said, like what I don't understand, like you can see some shows they are quite expensive to produce, but as you say, I mean, they weren't getting paid a lot. In terms of locations, it's It doesn't look that expensive to film the show. I mean, of course, you can have your cast and crew, but you're not really using special effects. You're not using a lot of different settings. Like, so it looks like a relatively cheaper sitcom to make. Well, like most other sitcoms, to be honest, you know, that's the thing. And if you're not paying your cast members like $1 million an episode, what is the reason? If it's popular, if it's pulling in the numbers, it just kind of feels like, oh, well, you know, we just gave up on it. So, all right, cool. Well, showrunner wants to leave. Cool. You know, let's move on to something else. And I think it's a little bit unfair. Like, as I said, you know, like some shows you can understand. Like I said, I mean, for example, even Jupiter's Legacy to an extent, not a sitcom, but I mean that got cancelled by Netflix, and
very quickly.
Netflix says it cost $200 million to make that series. The original showrunner Steve DeKnight says he thinks it was like half of that. So it's a weird story, but you can kind of understand it didn't pull in the numbers in its first season. They pulled the plug. I still think it showed a lot of promise. I still think it was doing okay-ish, and maybe could have deserved a second season. But you can kind of understand in terms of a numbers game that makes sense. If a series is costing you $100 million, it's not the top show on the platform. It makes sense. But now, like a sitcom that's doing well, it's doing well on the network, it's doing well internationally on Netflix, and it's just getting pulled. It just does not make sense to me. And this is what baffles me about Hollywood sometimes. It's like literally, it's just after honestly. That's the way that they do certain things. I mean, we've seen like with studios, like with the likes of, you know, the Justice League, as we've touched upon before. They'll make stupid decisions. Let's cut a 3.5 hour, 4 hour movie into 2 hours because we want to like follow this. And these decision makers, I swear, dude, like, I don't know if it's cocaine or something in the industry. I don't know what's going on, but it's the weirdest decisions of all time.
I don't know. Sometimes like you'll see it, like a second season for something that was really rubbish, like, well, objectively, but like it's that same thing. I remember, I don't know if you ever watched a series called V back in the day.
I do remember
like
that.
Aliens or something.
Yes, I do recall it. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I remember, like, I was hooked, dude. And I was like halfway through second season. Someone was like, "Oh, it's too bad it got cancelled." And I just stopped watching, dude. I just couldn't. I was like, no, you know. And it kind of sucks because, like, it's not like it got to have its ending that was planned. I would have at least like loved to know beforehand. Yeah. You know, like, I don't know, if people say, listen, you got 3 seasons to do this, or listen, we're going to stop after this. But I think when it's like in between seasons and you're not sure if you're going to get picked up again and they say, nah, we'll just stop it right there. That's when you kind of look back and think, should we have tied things up, or, you know?
I mean, it's a lost opportunity, I find. It's just going to leave it all up in the air. And like, okay, of course, you know, there's always going to be a petition to revive it. And I mean, look, anything's possible nowadays. I think, especially now in this era, it's possible that it could find a home somewhere else.
That does happen. Who did that happen to? It happened to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, right?
Yeah, and also Lucifer as well. I mean, it was cancelled and ended up on Netflix, and it's a huge hit on Netflix as well. So it would be nice to see somebody like Netflix to actually, you know, go after it. And the thing is, you know, Hollywood is making such a stance about supporting diversity and inclusion, and you know, they're always doing this. And now you've got a sitcom that's got all of that, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic, and you just go and cancel that. It kind of like it just pisses on everything that you're saying. It's kind of like you just sitting. Oh, we care about these things, but only between this time and that time. You know, it's like all those jokes that they make about, you know, even now that it's Pride Month, that they say your corporates will only, like, you know, put on the rainbow flag from the 1st of June to the 30th. And then that's it. Then it's like the rest of, oh, well, then we don't care about it. No, you need to care about this. It needs to be ingrained into the actual industry. You need to start looking at it and say, this show's fantastic. This is what it's about, and support it. Get behind it. Not this crap of like, oh well, okay, cool, pull the plug now. And then when the next opportunity comes for a PR piece, a fluff piece, to say, no, but we care about this. This is what we do. Like, no, it needs to be inherent. It needs to be sincere. It needs to come from somewhere. And I think that with Kim's Convenience, like it had the magic there. It was magic.
No, I agree 100%.
And for me, I just think that it's like, you know what, this is a huge opportunity lost. And I sincerely hope it gets picked up. I hope that, there's a decision at some point that, they kind of look back after some time and like, okay, guys, you know what, this show is actually really good. We need a sixth season. Even if it goes directly to Netflix and Netflix picks it up, I mean, I could see this doing quite well. I mean, Netflix seems to put a lot of faith into sitcoms in general. I mean, they get quite a few seasons, like I've noticed, because I think they were obviously cheaper to make. I mean, they've got that crappy big show like sitcom that no one watches, and it's still got a season.
I didn't watch it. I don't know if I should have, but like I didn't understand it. When you see something, you're just like, but why?
Yeah,
that
well,
was my kind of
like I still say to myself, okay, cool, let's get a cool sitcom, but with like a wrestler that no one cares about. Like, I mean, come on, But again, I digress. I'm going off on a tangent. I'm just like firing shots at like every sitcom I dislike. But again, like I think Kim's Convenience is something that's super popular. Even like now, if I go on Netflix, you can see people are watching it. It keeps getting recommended. You look at the top 10
I'm still
list,
watching it,
and it's one of those things.
For me.
And yeah, I mean, for you, it's great. I mean, look, I think you are going to be disappointed by season 5 when you get there. As has been discussed by the cast members, they think that some issues were not handled correctly.
Yeah.
Some of the representation or some of the issues, the way that it was done, they feel a bit slighted by it. And I tend to agree with certain things. There's certain examples I can see that, and I completely agree with it. But also the most important thing is it just leaves everything up in the air. You get a resolution, and you don't understand what's happened to these characters that you've invested so much time and your heart with them. You want to find out what happens.
Yeah, and I think on that point that you were making before, I think if ideally the show was picked up again, I would hope that the cast get a little more creative input, because as far as I understand it, Simu Liu and other characters, other cast members, tried to kind of put their own spin on things and give their suggestions to the writers' room, but kind of got turned down more than a few times. And it's like a writers' room of like mostly white people as well. So I would hope that they get to like end off on their own terms, because it's kind of that thing where most shows where it gets like season after season, eventually like the actors almost become showrunners themselves, because I mean they're so ingrained in their characters that like they get to know them almost like better than some of the writers. But I would hope so, just for the sake of like keeping things genuine and not like falling into stereotypes, which I think like a lot of shows can tend to do.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you 100%. I mean, who knows better about the Asian experience than the Asian actor portraying the character? It makes complete sense. It's a no-brainer. Like everyone knows that is the right way to go. Yeah. And again, I think this does expose, the Hollywood fallacy of certain things where they don't necessarily do what they say they're going to do. In a sense, in terms of it. And I mean, I completely agree. The actors, they know the characters better than anyone else. And after being there for a couple seasons, they should be involved in the creative process. Yeah. I mean, they are basically the core of your show. I mean, for example, it's not necessarily a sitcom, but look at, for example, Suits. Yes. Suits, I mean, I think after a couple seasons, executive producers were like, the guys who, Patrick J. Adams and Gabriel Macht. They were executive producers. They were involved in creative input. They were even directing episodes.
But it makes sense, they're like the lifeblood of the show. So
exactly. I think you need those guys.
It needs to be interconnected like that. It needs to have like a flat level structure, but I think, I don't know, sometimes writers can be funny.
Look, I don't necessarily think it's the writers per se. I think it's the people writing the checks, because you obviously are getting brought into a writer's room. I mean, gigs are hard to come by in Hollywood. They're like, okay, cool, we're going to be writing a sitcom. I think they try to do their best sometimes, and maybe they might not necessarily be equipped with the right tools. They might be overridden by somebody else above them. So I can kind of understand that. I don't necessarily think it's just the writer's room's fault. I think it's actually the fault of the people making the decisions, the people side signing the checks, because you can kind of know. And, like, I mean, for example, I mean, working in advertising, we both know, you have a great idea and you say, listen, guys, this is my idea. We can't do it this way because we think it's this. And like the client turns around and says, oh, this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And, you kind of fight the idea, and you still, by the time the work goes out, you're not entirely like satisfied with something because there hasn't been an agreement or like at least a negotiation of like, okay, well, we can sacrifice this for this or do something like that. Most times it's like, the person writing the checks is the one who makes the final decision. And it's not right. I don't agree with it, but sometimes it can leave a bitter taste in your mouth. And I think that's the same thing that kind of happens on these shows. People, they obviously are showing up. They're probably trying to do their best. But sometimes like your decisions are just going to be like, well, I'm signing the check. I decide what goes on TV, so screw you.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that.
And look, for me, like I said, in terms of sitcoms, I'm very particular. Like I've been that sort of person over the years. When I was younger, I used to enjoy like a whole bunch of different things. I used to watch like the likes of Full House and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Step by Step.
What a good show!
I used to watch like as much stuff as I could. Martin, I mean, I love Martin. Like those sort of shows, Malcolm and Eddie. I used to love Malcolm and Eddie. I used to watch a whole bunch of sitcoms back in the day, and then I found like, in probably about the early 2000s, I found that they lost a lot of heart. Like they started being very much like Hollywood was trying to be too clever. Like the way it was very self-referential to the industry itself. And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm not in Hollywood. I don't care. Give me something that I can relate to as a person watching at home. Like there was just a lot of stuff that I just found was very self-referential to the industry. And I'm like, well, it was typical Hollywood wankery. Like, ooh, let's make a movie in Hollywood about Hollywood. Ooh, that's what's going to blow people's minds. Like, Hollywood loves nothing more than movies about itself. And I'm like, whatever. Okay, this sucks. And I kind of drifted away from sitcoms for many, many years. And I've watched a couple here and there that I've, grown attached to and I've enjoyed. But this was the first time in a long time with Kim's Convenience where I found a show where I was like, it's got heart in it. It's like it's not just funny. It's also got heart. I've got a connection to these characters. I want to see where these characters go. I feel for them. You laugh with them, but you also at the same time you kind of feel sad for them. Like I mean, sometimes with the you'd see the conflict between Appa and Chung, and you'd be like,
that's rough.
You feel it, man. You'd be like, man, like I can relate to this. Like I'd also feel devastated, and the moments where you think they're going to come together and eventually going to get past everything, and then something happens, and you're like, oh man. Like it was really good the way it was done because it kept you hooked and it kept you angry because you were like, I want to see them, make up again. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like now it's gone. That's it. And you're like, oh, come on, guys. This is a really good show.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, they did a good job of not only, bringing a little more insight into like maybe a typical Korean family living in America, but like also just a contemporary family. It's not like a cookie cutter family. It's like where people are so close and everything is always amazing and everything's always going well. It's always like, like people are being a bit petty and like, day to day, but at the end of the day,
it's real.
At the end of the day, like, of course they love each other. Of course, like their relationships matter, but like their in between interactions are hilarious just because like, you and your family like often will just be like petty and arguing about dumb stuff.
Exactly, but it's real. That's the thing, and like anyone can relate to that. I mean, I know, for example, looking back at like my family as well, like as like, for example, my grandparents being immigrants coming into a country and doing certain things, and some stuff that they did was like super funny. Like I'll never forget the time that one of the neighbors called the cops on my grandfather because they thought his house was burning down because he just decided, well, from where I came from, like if I cut the branch of my tree, I just burn them. And he just had a big fire going in the middle of his garden. And I just remember
live off the land.
Exactly. And like suddenly, like, the fire brigade's outside. And like I just remember like he was so angry about this. But still to this day, like it's just one of those stories where I was like, I can relate to like, your family does, strange things sometimes, peculiar things. Yeah. But it makes it real. It makes it actually mean something because it shows you that everybody's different and that, that everybody's got a unique story to tell, and people going to other countries, they bring different cultures with them. And sometimes it's fascinating to see like how it happens. And at the end of the day, it's like, it was just showing the most important thing is that everybody wants to find a home and everybody wants to find happiness. And that's the most fundamental part of like aspect of life. That's what every single human being wants. You want to find a home where you belong, somewhere where you belong, and you want to find happiness for you and your family. And I thought that was the thing with Kim's Convenience. It was them, traversing this journey. They want to find happiness as well between themselves. And I just thought it was fascinating. And they found somewhere they belonged. That was a thing about it that I really loved. And yeah, man, I'm bummed. Like, as you can hear, I'm really bummed.
Sure, man. I'm sorry, dude. But like, you know what? Let's have faith. I'm actually going to go into Twitter after this and tweet my support, opinions.
Well, yeah, we need a hashtag, man. Like restore the Kim's Convenience verse.
Restore the Kims.
Yeah, restore the Kims. Yeah, something like that. Let's do this. Yeah, like restore the Kims. But yeah, man, I really hope that they actually decide to do something with the show. It's huge. I mean, for me, it was huge in terms of like how it just depicted a lot of different things and the way that it captured, the magic of old school sitcoms in a way as well. That it just had that. It had hearts and soul. But yeah. Like we said, we'll see what happens. I mean, stranger things have happened. And I mean, we've seen a lot of these streaming services revive shows. Amazon's been pretty good at that, Netflix as well. So who knows? Maybe one of them might actually decide, let's pick up the show. I think Netflix is a good option. And hopefully they find a showrunner that wants to continue it. And we can get season 6.
Yes, please, Papa Netflix, listen.
Yes, please, Papa Netflix. It'll be great. But once again, Lois, thank you so much for joining me. It's been fun. It's been real. And we've had a good, passionate chat about Kim's Convenience and crappy sitcoms in general. Yeah.
Now I feel like I need to go to the grocery store.
It's been great, man. And yeah, for everyone else listening, thank you so much. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let us know if there's anything else you'd like us to chat about in the future. Until next time, peace.
Bye.